CBSE Board, Class 11, History, Chapter 4, Part 5, Audio by Renee Matthew. After the invention and the construction of the new forms of bridges and different styles of using the iron for making different products, the iron industry flourished, then came to be concentrating on specific products in specific regions, and they started developing themselves into integrated units of coal mining and iron smelting. So these processes were simultaneously happening in the iron industry, which got engaged in coal mining and iron smelting. Britain was lucky enough to possess excellent coking coal and high-grade iron ore. So it was very easy for them to make use of these products to convert it into the best quality iron. And that too in the same basins or even the same seams. So the same basin and same seam actually further propagated their convenience. It was very easy for them to use it and also convert it into the high quality iron. These basins were also close to ports. Okay, there were 5 coastal coal fields, and these coal fields could deliver their products straight into the ships. They were capable of delivering the products straight into the ships, the coal fields, and the coal fields were near the coast. Shipbuilding increased, as did the shipping trade. Everything happened in the same place. So when everything happens in the same place, it is easy for them to make use of shipbuilding, to have everything nearby. The ports were nearer, the coal fields were also nearer, so it was very easy for them to deliver and also to convert it into the required necessity. Now we have to talk about the British iron industry. It quadrupled. It was 4 the times of its output compared to what was initially between 1800 and 1830, and this product was the cheapest in Europe. So when something is cheap and when the output is high, people will go for it. And it was also satisfying the need of people to use it for different purposes. In 1820, a ton of pig iron needed 8 tons of coal to make it. But by 1850, it could be produced by using only 2 tons. Instead of a great number, now they could just use 2 tons and produce so much. So the productivity was high. And by 1848, Britain was smelting more iron than the rest of the world put together. They got the technique and they were smelting more iron and production was more. So that is about coal and iron. Very important topic, I told you earlier itself. Now we are going into the next invention, which is cotton spinning and weaving. The Britishers always used woven cloth, and it was more in demand, which was made out of wool and flax to make linen. From the 17th century, the country was importing bales of cotton cloth from India at great cost. They started importing materials from India, and they were fascinated also at the same time by the quality of the material which came from India. So as they established their trade links with India through the East India Company, political control over parts of India also strengthened its grip, and they started importing, along with cloth, raw cotton which could be spun and woven into cloth in England. So they started making use of many more types of materials along with the usual cotton cloth that they were importing. So they went there, they understood the technique, and of course they had these political grips on the country. So I've just given one ordinary random picture there. So till the early 18th century, spinning had been so slow and laborious. It was really laborious to have many people to work in the spinning mills, okay? And it was very laborious, it was very tedious, okay? That is because 10 spinners, mostly women, were engaged in this occupation, hence the word spinster came, okay, when it is a woman. It was required to supply sufficient yarn to keep a single weaver busy, so it was not very easy to get the orders and complete it on time, because it took a long process and there were no machines and they just did it manually, which was more difficult. It was tedious also. So while spinners were occupied all day, weavers actually waited idly to receive yarn. So they had to spin and make the yarn, and then only they could weave. So they were interdependent, but on a very high scale. It is like they had to sit and wait idly. The weavers did not have any work while the spinners spun the yarn. So that was not a proper way of working. So that was how more changes came into being. So with a lot of technological inventions successfully, we can see that the speed in spinning actually advanced, it progressed. That is when they started spinning raw cotton into yarn or thread, and also the weaving the yarn into fabric. So the speed actually increased, and that is how the orders came into England. So to make it more efficient, production gradually shifted from the homes of spinners and weavers to factories. So instead of giving the orders to women or whoever is doing it in their homes, they wanted it to be shifted to factories, and it got converted from a small scale production to large scale production. So from the 1780s, the cotton industry symbolized British industrialization in many ways. The cotton industry, so after the iron industry, it is the cotton industry which saw a dramatic change in the industrial phase. Now this particular industry, which is the cotton industry, had two features. It was also prevalent in the other industries. The features in cotton industry which was prevalent in the other industries. Raw cotton had to be completely imported, and a large part of the finished cloth was exported. So raw cotton was imported to England, and then finished cloth was exported. So look at the way they did it. They got the raw materials from India, and then they converted it into finished products because of the machines. So this sustained the process of colonization. It was very easier for them to have the grip on the Indian subcontinent. So the Britishers retained control over the sources of raw cotton as well as the markets. So when this process was going on, it was very easy for the Britishers to retain control. If they did not have control, things wouldn't have worked according to their demands. So it was entirely imported, exported, and that was all to the benefit of the British economy. The industry was very heavy. It was dependent on the work of women and children in factories. They were laborious. It was tedious for them to work here. This exemplified, this expanded the ugly phase of early industrialization. People started getting worked up because the number of hours and everything increased, and they were made to work day and night. And that is going to be described in the coming chapters. So now the first invention, you can see the picture of the flying shuttle loom, which was designed by John Kay in 1733. It made it possible to weave broader fabrics. Instead of making it very narrow, it was very easier for them to weave broader fabric in less time. And they could also use more yarn than could be supplied at the prevailing pace of spinning. It consequently called for more yarn than could be supplied. So the spinners could supply only a specific amount of yarn, but now it required more because they were going to do broader fabric. So you can see the picture here itself. It helped in making broader fabrics, and that was flying shuttle loom. The next one is the spinning jenny. It was a machine made by James Hargreaves in 1765, and a single person could spin several threads of yarn simultaneously. Several threads of yarn. So it is not that the weavers had to sit idle for a longer time. It was very easy to make it simultaneously. This provided weavers with yarn on time, and that too at a faster rate, and they could weave it into fabric without waiting for it or unnecessarily wasting the time. So we saw the flying shuttle loom, the spinning jenny. Next is the water frame. It was invented by Richard Arkwright in 1769. So we can see that so many people with brains and ideas and innovation existed in Britain. he produced a much stronger thread than before. The thread was stronger. This was also useful to weave pure cotton fabrics rather than fabrics that combined linen and cotton yarn. So they were able to now make pure cotton fabrics, which was much more costlier, and that gave way to the water frame. So which is the water frame? This is the water frame. Okay, so it was very easier for them to make stronger threads and very tighter threads. The next one is the mule. This is the mule. It was a nickname for the machine which was invented in 1779 by Samuel Crompton, which allowed the spinning of strong and fine yarn. Here it is a bit thick thread, but here it is strong and fine. It is strong and also fine at the same time. So that was the mule. So we saw the inventions. Now next is the power loom. Now the cycle of inventions in the cotton textile industry, it actually wanted to have a balanced form of job or work schedule between the tasks of spinning and weaving. It had to be balanced, where either of the people should sit idly. It concluded with the invention of the power loom by Edmund Cartwright in 1787. This is the power loom. Okay, so it was very easy to work now, and it stopped automatically every time a thread broke and could be used to weave any kind of material. So suppose a thread broke, it just stopped automatically, and it was very easy to weave with these machines. So from the 1830s, developments in this industry concentrated on increasing the productivity of workers. Instead of just producing something, they wanted the output, the productivity. All these terms came into the market. So only when something surges from a small scale production to large scale production, we will think of these terms, which is productivity, output, and finally capitalism creeped in. So instead of bringing new machines into use, the productivity of workers were also questioned, and people were made to work actually. So that was the power loom. Now it's a steam power, very important part, great invention also. The realization that steam could generate tremendous power, and that too very cheap and kind of very easy, it led to large-scale industrialization. Instead of using more power and resources, they wanted steam, which was much more economical. Water as hydraulic power had been the prime source of energy for centuries. They started using water, and water is a natural resource which is depleting. So now it was very easy, like it had been limited to certain areas, seasons. Because they were using water, it was limited to seasons and areas. They had to wait for a season. It was limited to an area which was having high abundance in water, and also it depended on the speed of flow of the water. So three factors are there: the area which had water, the season, and the speed of flow of water. So there were a lot of limitations when they used water as hydraulic power. Now things got different. When steam power provided pressure at high temperature, it enabled the use of a broad range of machinery. High temperature was used to use the steam power. This meant that steam power was the only source of energy which was actually inexpensive. I told you in the beginning itself that it was cheap, and also it was reliable, and that was really enough to manufacture machinery itself. So that alone was required to manufacture especially the machines, because so much of power is required to produce these machines, and it was very reliable and expensive also. Now steam power was first used in mining industries. They started using it in the mining industries, and as the demand for coal and metals expanded, as the demand for all these materials expanded, there was a lot of effort used to obtain them from ever deeper mines intensified. So when they started using it on a large scale, they wanted to actually expand, and what happened is they forced the laborers to dig deeper, go deeper. It started intensifying because all the resources that were found on the peripheral, on the surface, was already used. Now they had to dig deeper to get further. So flooding in mines was a serious problem because water used to seep in, and that caused a lot of problem. Thomas Savery built a model steam engine which was called the Miner's Friend in 1698 to drain mines, because when it was affected by mines they had to drain the mine, and Thomas Savery invented this machine which was known as the Miner's Friend. It is something which pumped out the water, and these engines actually worked very slowly in shallow depths, and the boiler burst under too much pressure. So sometimes it was really fatal where the boiler burst. It was not completely successful, it was dangerous also.